Welcome, Wanderer.
Diablo 4 Season 3 is around the corner, now only 6 days away. So it's time for us to plan on how we are going to maximize the abilities that Blizzard is giving us in Season 3. Let's have some fun, kill some demons, and make a construct. Greetings Internet, DDA here, and with the release of the blog post and all of the information that is coming out about Diablo 4 Season 3, I just wanted to take a second to talk about my theory crafting for how the powers are going to get integrated into all the classes and what are going to be the strongest powers that we have to work with. So the information that we have so far is that you're going to need to travel to Gate Hall, a town center underneath Kazakhstan, that is going to be the base of the operations, much like they've done in previous events like the Midwinter Blight. You're going to have a base of operation that you're going to always want to go back to and likely level all these constructs. Now, the other thing that they released is that you're going to be able to equip a total of 8 stones, and there's going to be 2 governing stones that kind of give your construct a main ability that it gets to use, and then you're going to have 3 tuning stones per governing stone, making a total of 6 tuning stones that augment that governing stone ability. So it's like ability and then 3 stones that buff up that ability. Now, one thing that we don't know for sure, and we're going to get more information on this as they release the patch notes, but just looking at this kind of image that they released, you can kind of draw a conclusion that there's going to be 2 types of governing and support stones. One is going to be focused on melee, and the other one is going to be focused on utility. So now I'm not sure if you're going to be able to equip 2 melee or 2 utility, but I would expect that you're going to be kind of pigeonholed into only having 1 melee ability and then 1 utility ability. Just based on the different colors, right? Because you got like this brown color here for the melee abilities and this like blue-ish color for the tactical support abilities. So this is what I'm assuming at this point. So now one thing I did want to say to Blizzard is kudos. You did. Blizzard, thank you so much for learning from the vampiric powers and learning from the malignant hearts. We are not going to have to accumulate a ton of malignant hearts like we had with minor percentage increases that fill up all of our inventory space. They're letting us level these stones just so you're only going to have 1 of the stones and then you're just going to level that stone. And the way that we're going to level them, again, learning from the vampiric powers that had a million gazillion blood lores at the end of the game that we didn't care about, they're just letting you accumulate the stones, break them down, and then level the stones by breaking other stones down. So there's going to be no additional resource in the game. It's just stones, using the stones to level the stones. Very simple. Kudos. Good job, Blizzard. See right here, collect or craft duplicates of the same stones, fuse them together to grant experience. So there's not a special little extra resource that we have to care about. It's just the stones. Now, they did also release a full breakdown of all the abilities. Now, these abilities, they don't have like cooldowns listed or damage listed, so it's difficult for us to draw exact conclusions on what is going to be the best abilities, but we can kind of just use our current knowledge of the game and then likewise just what we know that has been done in the past for some of these abilities, just to kind of draw general conclusions. Now, I did take some time to kind of break up. Like I said, it appears to me like there's 2 distinct types of stones that we have, attacks and utility. I did take some time to break up the stones into what I thought would be the different abilities, but I didn't get the numbers to add up. I kind of counted what I saw on the screen from the image and then counted what I'd broken them up into. So this is just my initial reaction. All of this is subject to change, and I'm always willing to adjust my opinions based on the presentation of new data. So I have what the attack buff tuning stones here. just anything that said damage I threw in this category. Again, I'm not sure, but we're just going to have to learn more and adjust over time. So I have some notes here that I wanted to discuss that I think is going to be the most powerful abilities that we have to offer. I think you're going to be able to build attacks with kind of two ideas in mind, and that is going to be either maximizing the damage of the construct attack or giving you some form of utility with the construct attack. So I think that's going to be the big thing. Breaking will likely be the standard attack augment. So breaking is right here. Damage from the supported skill instantly destroys enemy barrier, which is good. Not great, but good. And then in addition, there's a chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. Now, everyone knows that in the vampiric powers, everyone is using the Accursed Touch, Prey on the Weak combo. This is going to be like the top skill in my eyes that is I'm thinking about. Many classes only have very few options to add vulnerability into builds, so letting your construct do it for you is going to be very valuable. So the breaking support is going to go to the top of my list. So now there is a world where the construct is actually doing a lot of damage. And actually from the class designer on Twitter, confirmed by Wudijo, the pet is actually scaling 1-to-1 with all of your stats. Your critical strike damage, your critical strike chance, all of your pluses of damage. So unlike the pets from the Necromancer that only get a third of your stats, this is much different. This makes the ability for you to actually build a damaging construct possible, because while you're scaling yourself, you are also scaling your construct. So you don't need to focus or lose out on anything by scaling your construct. And this makes me believe that this combo right here, Tempest, Devastation, Burning, and Registered Damage, may be overpowered. It may be the strongest damage combination that we have to offer for the construct. That is because the Tempest electrically charges an enemy, causing it to deal damage to themselves and enemies each second over time, and then as soon as an enemy is killed, the Tempest spreads to another enemy, giving you this like cascading damaging effect. Basically like kind of exploding your damage, right? You group a bunch of enemies together, you kill all the little ones, and then all the little ones are going to then kind of give the Tempest to the bigger ones that are still alive, right? So now where do the Tuning Stone augments come in with this Tempest? Well, that is right here. We have the Devastation is going to give a critical strike damage bonus to the supported skill. I'm assuming the attack skills. And then the Burning support gives a portion of the supported skill's damage applies as burning damage, and then burning enemies take bonus critical strike damage. So again, critical strike damage bonus from the Seneschal. Okay? So critical strike damage bonus, critical strike damage bonus, and then you add the registered damage support, which is very reminiscent of the Barber Heart. Any damage caused from the supported skill is registered. The registered damage explodes at effectiveness when the target dies as fire damage. So this has, everyone always talks about double dipping. This has the potential to double dip. If the Tempest is killing the little mobs, exploding, and then adding damage cascading to the other ones that are also under registered damage, this it just has the potential for the AoE and single target damage to just go through the roof. So definitely watch out for this combination. Like I said, Tempest, Devastation, and Burning, just for the critical strike damage increase, and then registered damage to send everything to the stars. So I made a note here that Blizzard in general doesn't make pets do high damage, but we know that the pets are scaling 1-to-1. So this is going to be pretty much the top of my list. I think a lot of people are going to be using this. One thing I really like that they did is they added a augment for every element in the game. That is going to make very interesting builds, especially for the sorcerer, because, like, for example, the burning adds fire damage. So there's a potential there for us not to need the fire bolt enchantment. We could still activate burning damage on everything, so definitely watch out for that. The poison support is actually going to be great for both poison rogues and druids, like poison druids, because it's going to add a lot of AoE damage. So let's go to the poison support. A portion of the supported skill's damage is applied as poison damage. This poison damage has a chance to spread to all poison damage to an additional enemy. Note the wording there, all poison damage, okay? So this is just speculation. I don't know how exactly this is going to work, and we need to test it out, but there is a chance that this is actually taking all the poison damage with it, not just all the damage that the skill itself is doing. Meaning that if you're a poison or a druid, a poison rogue or a poison druid, you could apply a boatload of single target poison damage and then use that poison augment, the poison support, to just put that poison damage on every single mob. So very, very strong. Definitely watch out for that one. The poison, dust, and dust support with the Tal Rasha ring. Previously, Sorks have not had access to shadow damage to add to that Tal Rasha stack. So this adds a potential for us to have 5 stacks of Tal Rashas, which it will be crazy. So Sorks, watch out. Gonna be some of the strongest in the game. And then Frigid and Electrocution, those are the other ones, the other elements, right? Electrocution does a portion dealt as lightning damage, and then the Frigid does a portion as cold damage. So potentially there's going to be different builds that you can do with the Sorcerer that you can, say, not use certain abilities and use the Frigid support, so you're still getting that cold damage on your Tal Rashas. Likewise with Electrocution, so just something that we have to consider moving forward. I also wanted to mention the gripping support. The gripping support might be used at endgame dungeoning to group enemies. Right now, there's only really 2 abilities in the game that are letting us do this kind of grouping. Well, there's a few. There's Grasping Veins from the Necros, and then Barbs have that iron chains that they use. And then there's Raymond and Inexorable Will that can also group enemies like this. Well, now we're getting a new one called Gripping Support that can, like, at the end game, like, there's gonna, there's the Vault, and then there's the Gauntlet that we have. The Gauntlet is all going to be about the time that we complete this dungeon. And the time that we complete this dungeon can be really augmented by damage and effects done by the supporting skill to distant enemies, pulls them towards the Seneschal construct, and it can only occur once every so often per enemy. So the ability to do this, definitely put that at the top of your list. I think this is mostly going to be useful for, like I said, like end game, super end game pushing, super end game, like dungeoning, and trying to just get the time as low as possible. Like, you're not going to have the highest numbers with this ability, but it's going to allow you to maximize your damage. Like, for example, if you use the Tempest, Devastation, Burning registered damage, well, then you can also group all enemies together. For example, like, you could maybe take out Devastation or take out Burning, put the Gripping for just ultimate pulling and then ultimate explosions. The other thing I wanted to mention, I mentioned that there were kind of 2 ways you could look at this, kind of look at it like damaging, and I think the biggest damage is going to be this one, and then look at more utility, and utility like with the Tal Rasha ring, and then like doing different builds with Frigid and Electrocution, and gripping is utility. Another utility is the resource support. Potentially this can give us an entire resource bar with both the multi-shot and arcing augments. So right here, the multi-shot and arcing supports. Supported skill can hit additional enemies, and supported projectile skills launch additional projectiles. So if you combine that with the resource support, player gains an amount of primary resource when the supporting skill first deals damage. And that's the key, when it first deals damage to an enemy. So what we want to do to maximize this is we want to hit additional enemies when it first hits the enemy, we're going to get resource, and then launch additional projectiles, again, to hit more enemies and get more resource with that initial hit. Now, in order to maximize this, we want an attack skill that has a low cooldown and a high attack rate. So I'm not sure which one that's going to be. Maybe it's Focus Fire. Maybe it's, Gyrate or Lightning Bolt, just because it's, arcing to other enemies already. Without the numbers, it's hard to determine. But that's what you're going to want to look for. You're going to want to look for a low cooldown, high attack rate ability to really maximize that resource gain. So for the utility buffs, what I think are going to be like the tactical supports of the construct, the number one on my list is right here. Flash of Adrenaline, tactical support, safeguard, duration. Tactical and duration may be close to permanent. Flash of Adrenaline administers a quick flash of adrenaline to the player, granting bonus damage for the duration. Number one. I mean, there you go. You want damage. Number one in this game is always damage. Dead enemies are not enemies that are hitting you. So that's number one on my list. So then, likewise, if you go to the utility buffs, you get tactical to decrease the cooldown of the supported skill, and then duration to increase the duration. So we're increasing the duration of the adrenaline. We're reducing the cooldown of the adrenaline. So therefore, you could actually get to close to a permanent buff on this, I feel. As long as things line up. Like, there's a chance that, this duration, or rather, this cooldown is only for attacks. I'm not sure. Like, things can change, but this is just my initial reaction. And then, likewise, you're going to add Safeguard. When the supported skill is activated, it grants damage reduction to you. So you're going to get damage reduction, cooldown reduced on it, and duration increased on it. Sounds amazing to me. So that's going to be like number one on my list for utility for sure. I'm going to have a secondary shout out to the Protect power, giving the barrier. So the barrier is not bad. Right here, materialize a protective barrier on the player for a portion of their maximum life. So this is going to be a situation where if you absolutely need more survivability, then you can just throw this on. The Flash of Adrenaline is always going to be your best choice for like endgame builds. Most endgame builds should have enough survivability, but if you're lacking in survivability, the Protect is there for you to switch into. So then the only other thing I want to note, that initiative may be needed to buff your character quickly. So the initiative skill, initiative support, the supported skill will cause the Seneschal construct to teleport to the target if out of range. So what I see this being used for is your construct is going to be attacking, using its attack skill, and then it's going to want to activate the buff on you, but it's going to be far away from you. So then with the initiative support, it's going to then teleport to you, apply the buff on you, and then maybe teleport back or something. So, mobility is a big thing. So there's the potential for this to be really valuable. I'm sure that the Sentinel could get body blocked by mobs. So if it's like running into mobs and there's tons of mobs all around it, there's a potential for it not to be able to really get to you to apply that buff. So this could be a really good skill that we could use. So, and the only other thing I wanted to mention, that Reconstruct just seems bad unless the construct AI is super smart and fast, which what we've seen from previous pets, I feel like this is not going to be a good ability for us to use. And then the Reconstruct is, of course, that healing beam right here. The Sentinel construct channels a reconstruction beam. Right there it says channels, so automatically, in Diablo 4, whenever something says channels, it's probably a bad ability. Reconstruction beam, healing the player for a portion of their maximum life. Preemptive damage reduction is always going to be better. Putting a barrier on you, preventing you from future damage is always going to be better than trying to heal back damage that you've already taken, because this is going to rely on the AI of the construct to be able to respond to you taking damage and having low life. And are you really going to sit there and wait for the construct to walk over to healing beam you? So there you have it. That's my initial reaction to what I'm looking for moving into Season 3, what the powers for the construct I'm going to be looking out for and building. Flash of Adrenaline just seems ridiculous, and I think everyone's going to be using that always. So if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe for the best Diablo 4 content breakdowns and guide videos. And as always, turn your dial to Random Number Gaming for weekly updates on Diablo 4.